Modern football is still sickening, but at least some people have finally seen the light. Hello and welcome back to the Has Been Shown YouTube channel. It is Harry here, and today it is time for, well, I guess a follow-up video to the one I did yesterday, or the other day, depending on when this video goes up. I've got no idea when that will be, but this is basically a follow-up video to the one I did, well, put out on Tuesday about, obviously, the absolute disgrace that is the European Super League, or should I say, that was the European Super League, provided, of course, it pretty much doesn't go ahead because it's very likely for it not to go ahead, which is fantastic. But I just thought I'd do a follow-up video in a less angry manner. But still unscripted, you can probably tell because I'm going all over the place, but in a less angry manner and a hopefully more articulate manner. So I'm gonna basically just give my thoughts as to what's going on. It's been an absolute whirlwind of events over the last 48 hours, 72 hours. I've gone from absolute depression to complete elation, or relief rather, that these people have finally understood the needs of the fans do not fall in line with the European Super League concept. And also I'll give my thoughts on what the punishment should be for each of the teams involved. So without any further ado, let's just get into yet another unscripted video, which I didn't want to have to do, but considering all the events that have gone on, I feel as though I have to. So in case you somehow don't know what's going on, obviously the European Super League has completely caved in on itself. If you want to watch my video giving my original thoughts and reactions to it, obviously the more angry version of it, then I'll leave the link to that video in the description so you can check it out. I'm recording this at about 10:30 on a Wednesday morning, so I only know as much as what has happened up to this point. So far, all of the English teams have withdrawn. City were the first to go, so big ups. And Chelsea were the first to announce that they were withdrawing, but City were the first to properly submit the withdrawal process. And all the other English teams, Arsenal, Man United, Liverpool and Spurs, immediately followed suit. Well, I say immediately, about a few hours later, about 11 o'clock-ish. Thanks for ambulance. And then Inter Milan are also set to follow suit, I believe. They don't want to take part in it anymore. I think also the Juventus chairman has just said that the league cannot continue as a result of obviously the 7 teams leaving it, but specifically the 6 English clubs, because that was the killer thing for them, I think. And whilst the ESL originally said earlier today that it would continue on as normal, that there would be like obviously just these 5 teams, or 6 teams as it would have been at the time, competing. Why would you have 6 teams competing against each other? That would just be completely pointless. It basically just turned into a glorified version of Scottish League 2. Why would you want that? But anyway, I'm going sidetrack. But they did say earlier that like they would want to keep it going, and they still thought that it would work, and that they were still, all the clubs were still keen to push on. And now the Juventus chairman, or presumably to be ex-chairman of it, has come out and stated that the Super League cannot continue. So the World Series cricket that I alluded to in my previous video, that lasted 2 years. The European Super League for football couldn't even last 2 days. Florentino Perez, the chairman of Real Madrid, and I believe the chairman of the Super League as well, or president of Real Madrid rather, he said that once you're in the Super League, you're absolutely guaranteed to be in, and there's no withdrawal process that's allowed. Well, obviously there is, because 6 teams, or 7 teams now, are either formalising or have formalised the exit process. And of course, City were the first ones to do so, and Chelsea was the second. In what world are Qatar, the UAE and Russia setting the gold standards when it comes to football, especially given their human rights records? How do we live in a world where Qatar, Russia and the UAE are the ones to set the gold standards for football? What is it how have we reached this point? I don't understand. Well, having said that, in all fairness, from what I gather, Roman Abramovich didn't actually want to take part in the European Super League in the first place. It was the chairman of Chelsea, I think his name is Bruce Buck or something like that, who signed up almost against Abramovich's wishes. And Chelsea, I believe, apart from Buck, didn't want to join in the first place, and neither did City. They just joined up because they didn't want to get left behind. Whilst that is obviously a bit of an act of cowardice, you know, peer pressure in a way, that they joined up for the sake of joining up and not being left behind, it is good that they had a lot of reservations about it. And obviously when the backlash started to come and the players started to voice their concerns, you know, Kevin De Bruyne, all the Liverpool's players, Marcus Rashford as well, Pep Guardiola, manager obviously, Jurgen Klopp in an interview with Sky. I think that those are the points where, you know, the clubs decided actually this is not a good idea. I mean, the players and the managers and the staff didn't even know until we knew about it on Sunday. How backstabbing is that? Not even the players or the managers, who are some of the most integral parts of the club, in fact probably the most integral part of the club besides the fans, How is it that they didn't know until we knew about it? It's just ridiculous. I can't understand that. And whoever signed them up for City and all these other clubs as well, they need to take a good hard look at themselves in the mirror and truly think about their intentions. But I'm well aware, obviously, the big clubs, they kind of don't really care about supporters like you or me or anyone like that. They care about the one-time business who will spend a load of money on merchandise and all that kind of stuff. But it is good to see that they finally realised that this is a stupid idea and it goes against every single thing of the legacy fans' ethos. I don't know how Perez didn't come to his senses. He's so out of touch. He said something like that young people weren't interested in football nowadays because of the number of low-quality matches or something. The sport in general, has been a complete lifesaver for young people during the pandemic. When sport was gone for a few months, it was tough because we didn't have that clinging light to that thing to cling on to, really. And then as soon as it came back, everyone was invested in it. Everyone was watching it, or at least as many people as possible, because they enjoyed watching the games. They take great pleasure in watching the games because it was something to cling on to, as I say. And just to say that, they weren't interested in football anymore, of course they were. And they wouldn't have been interested in football if this policy had gone ahead. Or they certainly wouldn't have been interested in the actual competition itself. I can guarantee you the viewing figures would have been absolutely minimal, if any at all. As well as the spectating figures, should crowds actually have been allowed to watch the games by the point that the European Super League was due to start, which is apparently in August. And also Perez said it would save football. What? By reducing it to 15 teams? Because that definitely saves football. That definitely saves, the millions of other football clubs across the world confining all of that down to just 15. Yes, of course, football is kind of a closed shop right now. And it's difficult for teams without a lot of money to sustain real challenges for league titles or Champions League qualification or Europa League qualification. But there is always that possibility that something can happen, especially when it comes to a match day and it's 11 versus 11 and you have an equal playing field. With taking that away, it's just like, what's the point? But it would have just completely ostracized the millions of other football teams in either the second tiers of their respective countries, or the third tiers, or the fourth tiers, or fifth tiers, and right the way down to grassroots football. That would have been completely gone, completely blown out of the water. But has football been saved? No, I mean, not really. It's still completely broken, and it is still a case of, the teams with more money are going to be the ones who consistently challenge for league titles and trophies all the time. But its current format, it does the job. At least there is still that window of opportunity. There is still that chink of light through the window to allow smaller teams to make it into the big time. Now it's time to move on to the segment where I talk about what I think each team's punishment should be, because if they aren't punished in some way, this could happen again. I don't think maybe it might not, because obviously they realise the fans' backlash, but there's always that possibility. So what do I think the punishment should be? Well, obviously they should be very, very severe. However, they shouldn't apply for this particular season. And there are two reasons why I say this. The first one is that the decision to instigate this European Super League was not done by the players or the managers or anything like that. It was just a load of big businessmen looking for a new play toy, which has thankfully come apart at the seams. But it didn't affect the players' performance on the pitch. It's only because, as I say, of those select few businessmen that this happened. And you look at things like the Calciopoli back in 2006, the ramifications for that were right to happen in the seasons in question because they directly affected matters on the pitch. So obviously, Juventus were fixing games left, right and centre to allow them to win the league. And obviously they ended up winning the league twice, 2004, 2005 and 2005, 2006. And they were stripped of both of those league titles because of the fact that they were engaging in match fixing. But that doesn't apply here because it didn't directly affect their performances on the pitch for this particular season. And it would actually be a bit of a slap in the face to the players who've worked extremely hard to get into those positions that they're in right now. Man City going on to win the league. And I promise I'm not just saying that because I want to see City win the league. That's not the reason why I'm saying this. It's because I just think it hasn't directly affected the performances on the pitch for this season, and it would just be a right slap in the face of the players who've worked so hard to get into this position, to be in a position to be the favourites to win the league. And it would just be such a slap in the face on their part because one person has gone behind their back. And same thing with the Champions League semi-finals. Like, just leave it as it is for now, because they've worked hard to get to where they are right now. And Chelsea, Real Madrid and Man City, all part of the, or all originally part of the ESL. PSG obviously abstained, good on them, as I keep on saying. But the other three teams, just let them be in the Champions League semi-finals this season, because they've worked hard to get there, and it's only right that they are allowed to play that Champions League semi-final. Next season, obviously, that's when things start to get trickier, but I'll get into that in a bit. But this season, just let the rest of the season play out, and then the ramifications come in next season. And to be honest, that was actually the second reason. I just didn't realise it for some reason. But yeah, that was the second reason, is that it hasn't affected the performances on the... Well, first reason, that it hasn't affected the performances on the pitch. And the second reason was that the players have earned the right to be in the position that they're in. So just let them play out for the rest of the season. You know, however, the punishments for deductions of points and stuff should come in next season. And it should come in hard. I personally think the least severe restrictions should go to Man City and Chelsea, because they were the ones who pulled out first. And again, I'm not just saying that because of bias or anything like that. I'm genuinely saying I would have said it with any combination of teams, irrespective of who pulled out first or anything like that. And if anything, I think Chelsea should be punished less severely than City, because it was one person within Chelsea, not even, or from what I gather, one person, I don't know for sure, but it went against the owner's wishes in the first place. So I think Chelsea should be punished the least severely, especially because they say they have reservations of going into the Super League in the first place. They just didn't want to get left behind. So I personally think it should be like a ban from the Champions League for either next season or the season after. So for 2 seasons or 1 season, I don't know. And then hefty fines, but again, not as hefty as the other ones. But all of those fines, as I keep on saying, as I said in the last video, and I stand by that point, don't let it go to the Premier League, let it go to the lower league teams, let it go to the local communities, let it go to charities, let it go to people who need it the most. Don't let it go to anyone, any like big businessmen in high power or anything like that. Let it go to the people who need it, and they have to be in the very high millions. They have to be in the very high millions. On top of that, I think they should be deducted between 10 or 20 points for both next season and the season after. For joining it, for taking part in the first, for even having the idea to audacity to sign up, they should still be punished. But from what I gather, as I say, there were so many reservations, and I think that the punishment should come into effect, as I say, next season, and that should be like the least stringent, because they were the least complicit in the whole running of the Super League idea and formalizing the structure and all that kind of stuff. That's why I think that they should be fined and deducted, well, fined the least and deducted the fewest points. However, for Man United and Liverpool, things get a little bit more interesting. The most stringent ones, they have to fall at the door of those teams. They were the ones who were the key instigators behind, the Glazers. Joel Glazer was the vice chairman. I think maybe even John Henry was purported to be a kind of vice chairman of the league. I know Stan Kroenke was, but they have to be really, really heavily fined. Maybe Arsenal do as well. I don't know about Spurs. They can just kind of fall somewhere in the middle. Arsenal can kind of go closer to the United and Liverpool end of fines and deductions and stuff like that. And I think it should be genuinely a 40 to 50 point deduction for them for being the main organisers and the key propagators of the concept of the European Super League. Potentially relegation, but I don't know really, but certainly at the very least deducting them between 40 and 50 points for next season and the season after, to make it really difficult for them to qualify for the Champions League and to maybe even stay up, who knows. And then a ban from Europe for a few seasons, maybe even 4 or 5. This has to be done by the Premier League, because if they don't do this, it has the potentiality to happen again, and that's really concerning. But again, the punishment should be meted out based on how the complicity of each of the teams who took part in it, and who was the most complicit in organising it, who was the most complicit in setting the structure and organising the teams and all that stuff. Man United and Liverpool, there have to be the most severe punishments. And then Arsenal and Spurs can kind of fall somewhere in the middle, maybe deductions like 30 points or something, and a European ban for a couple of seasons. Although, to be fair, I'm pretty certain Arsenal won't need it anyway, because they're not going to qualify for Europe. That's where I think, because again, it's like complicity, because in Italy, I think it was the season after, like Milan got deducted 15 points, Lazio 9, or Fiorentina 3, or something like that. I can't remember exactly how many points it was, but for each of the specific teams afterwards. And obviously Juventus got relegated to Serie B and deducted 9 points. But you have to judge it based on the complicity of each of the teams in the European Super League. And that would be, I think, what the punishment meter, so to speak, should be judged on. So again, United and Liverpool were the most, Arsenal and Spurs kind of in the middle, and Chelsea and City with the least stringent fines. But don't make no mistake about it, they have to clamp down heavily, otherwise who knows where this might go. I don't think the Premier League will relegate them, to be fair, because obviously that's a huge loss of revenue on their part as well, and it might be a huge loss to the UK economy as well. So I think they have to be a little bit careful with relegations, but definitely, like as I say, hefty points deductions. And I'm going to presume that in Italy and Spain, I mean, I don't know what the punishments are going to be like there, but I can't see Barcelona or Real Madrid being relegated, because that would again mean a huge loss of revenue for the league, a huge loss of revenue. Besides, who wants to see Lionel Messi play in the Spanish second tier anymore? Certainly not me. But I just don't think that they will relegate them purely based on the fact that it would be a huge financial hit to not just them, but to the league, but to the country as well. Whatever they do, though, they have to make sure that the fines just go to the people who need it the most, not to the leagues in question. Moving forward, this is where the time has now come to almost take inspiration from the German model and give fans a greater say in the day-to-day running of the club, and for the FA to introduce really proper fit and proper tests. And they have to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again, because if it does, then, well, obviously the fans will completely rise up against it, and it will probably come crashing down on itself in as quick a time as this did, but there is still the possibility for it to happen again, so they have to introduce really, really stringent fines, and quick. Let's be clear though, football is, well, as saved as it can be, because it's kind of gone, but it is as saved as it can be, and the fan power has once again proven to be stronger than any businessman can be in this scenario, especially those who have no idea how football truly operates. I can never let my team, Man City, forget that they took part in this or originally decided to jump on the bandwagon or whatever. But I am at least happy that they were one of the first teams to pull out, so at least they had a modicum, and I'm talking a modicum of decency. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think the punishments I've suggested are right? Do you think they're too unfair? Do you think they're too lenient? What do you think? Let me know what you guys would do in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Thank you very much for watching in any case. And until next time, I'll see you then.